How will I be able to program a SNES game in just 30 days without using my hands? You're about to find out. And spoiler alert, it wasn't easy. I noticed that no one had ever attempted to program a game without using their hands. I started off by doing some research. I knew that people were able to hook up their brain to their computers using EEGs. You put on the EEGs and you essentially train a machine learning model on your brain waves. It will slowly begin to recognize pattern A, and you put in input to do action X. So for example, let's say you imagine yourself pulling an object towards you 100 times, and based on this brainwave pattern that you're making, you tell the computer to press the up key. Obviously, I'm simplifying it a great deal, but that's basically the gist of it. Now, this theoretically could work. However, to program, you need to use basically every key on your keyboard. And the brain doesn't produce enough distinct types of patterns to reliably simulate every key. Even for one pattern that the model is well trained on, it is only reliable about 40% of the time. So I scratched this possible solution off my list. If I couldn't use my mind as a tool to program, I started thinking what else could be used.
Expect some clear skies
I didn't
today.
ask you.
Daytime temperatures will hover around 70.
Wait, that's it. I could use my voice to code, couldn't I? There are already a few different speech-to-text programs to choose from, and I discovered one specifically tailored to programming called Talon. This speech recognition engine, coupled with a plugin called Cursorless, would allow me to, like a little coding god, speak my code into existence. However, there was one hurdle to jump with this. Cursorless, together with Talon, has its own language. It has its own vocabulary, keywords, syntax, and grammar that need to be known in order to do pretty much anything. To use these speech tools, you essentially have to learn a completely new language. But hey, the struggles would make it fun for you to watch and a good challenge for me, so I said the hell with it, let's use it. The next thing I had to decide was if I was going to create my own game or if I should recreate one. As subscribers of this channel know, I'm a big fan of retro games from the 80s and 90s, so after a bit of thinking, I chose to recreate one of the games that had the biggest impact on me as a child. A game so cool, so epic, that the first time I would play it, it would permanently change how I looked at video games and superheroes for the rest of my life. But more on that later. The rules I gave myself are that I can use my hands to test my code's gameplay and to rip sprites to drop them into a file directory. However, every interaction I have in my code editor and every single line of code that is executed must be spoken, not written, by my keyboard. I allowed myself to start with a basic file directory, and I spent a good amount of time cutting out all the assets I knew I would need for the first level. It's May 12th. I have 30 days to complete this challenge. Let's go. I knew that programming without my hands would be a challenge, but this was such a gargantuan task that I may have overestimated it. The voice recognition tool was far from perfect. I spent a lot of time saying the same thing several times, and other times it just flat out couldn't understand some words no matter how hard I tried. Luckily, people in the Talon community were supportive and helped me by answering some questions I had. But due to this process, progress was so slow. From my planning beforehand, I had a good idea of what mechanics I needed in my game. Obviously things like collision, rigid body physics, animation, health, etc. It took me about 12 hours just to get the foundations of my ECS system up and running, which was about 3 nights worth of coding. And finally, just as I had gotten something up and running on the screen, the unthinkable happened. I'm a bit ashamed to admit it, but I actually forgot this whole time to initialize a Git repo in the folder. I was so focused on getting this voice recognition system to work with my code editor that when I finally was making progress, I was laser focused on coding. I got tunnel vision and I just never thought to initialize a Git repo. And based on this information, you can probably guess what happened. With some voice command, I accidentally deleted a whole file that essentially contained a third of my work. I couldn't undo it. I had put most of the game engine into the same file because it was easier to handle, and now it was all gone. I'll even admit that I did momentarily break the rules of the challenge just to attempt an undo command. Yeah, I had a lot of problems with this thing. I nearly slammed my computer into the wall, so I had to step away from this challenge for a little while to cool down and calm down. I came back later, I initialized Git, and I rewrote what I deleted. Okay guys, I have finally finished rewriting the ECS a few days ago, and I have put it into separate files. I am currently halfway through the challenge. It is May 27th. And I have to now change my expectations because it has taken me longer than I thought to get this done. With this huge setback, I knew that I couldn't get the game done. I wasn't even sure if I could get a level done, but I still wanted to see how much I could complete. Fortunately, the ECS design is great at scaling, and it was quick to add new features to the game. So at the end of 30 days, I spent a little under 100 hours on this challenge. I realized quickly that building a majority of the game would not be possible, so I later changed my goal to just a level. And after I accidentally deleted a huge portion of my work, I had to reel back my expectations yet again. So I hope you're happy with the result. The game I chose to begin building out is Mega Man X3, one of my favorite games of all time. The intro stage was something that was so badass, I always wanted to be able to recreate it myself. Time was a major constraint, so it wasn't an exact copy of the intro. I was able to build out most of the beginning intro cinematic, but I left a few special things out. I didn't include the laser shots in the background. I wasn't able to find the right sprites for enemy explosions, and the final Spycopter's explosion could have been a bit more seamless. I built some of the features like jumping, dashing, shooting, and charging. I also laid out some of the level, but I didn't get the chance to build AI, so I felt as though it's a moot point to lay out its entirety. There is some polishing I also didn't get a chance to do. I felt like the proportions were slightly off, and adding some of the sounds to the cutscenes would have been a bit better. However, almost all the main systems are there. Some of the few missing things I'm including, as I mentioned, was enemy AI, an inventory screen, and the wall climbing ability. This was an important challenge to do because I believe that accessibility is important. For those people who may not have the use of their arms but still want to be devs, it shows that they can still do it. It just takes a bit more time to get work done, but hard work shouldn't stop anyone from doing what they want to do. An interesting positive I learned was that although my raw coding speed was a lot slower than if I was using my hands, I think I made a lot less mistakes on average. There wasn't much code that I wrote that I later had to come back to and rewrite to fit what I was doing at that moment. Since it took so much time to write something out, before I decided to write anything, I really put a lot of thought into how the code would work as more of the game was built. If you want to get access to this code, please like this video and subscribe, because if I get 100 likes on this video and 50 subscribers, I'll put the code out for you guys to work on and use as you would like. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see next.